Okay, thank you. Um, does anyone else want to kind of give some feedback on this?
Well,
I would also like, oh, go ahead.
so just as everybody else, when initially the city decided to close the restrooms and the water fountains, I thought that was exactly the right balance in sending a signal. We're in tricky times, and we should be careful. And then later on, it became basically a closure because there are very few residents that have the park accessible within walking distance, open space. And so to me, this is overkill. And I think people are very responsible and do understand the need for social distancing. And that's not so much the issue.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your feedback. Okay, Sonia?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would really like to see it reopened as well. I understand from reading the materials that were sent out that it sounds like there were some problems in the way that it was going initially, but I'd like to see some other steps taken to be able to leave the park open in a safe way, if necessary, making trails one way or closing off some of the narrower trails. And particularly with respect to the large number of people, I mean, personally, I would rather access the park on a less frequent basis with fewer people there than have it closed altogether, or than have it be really crowded. So I would love to see something where, I know somebody at one point suggested something where they could, let in even or odd license plates, or I was thinking, go some section of the alphabet, whatever's easiest to administer. Because personally, I would rather be there once a week than every day and have it be crowded. And I do think it's really critical that we follow these steps, and if there are people who aren't respecting it, that we take steps to kind of enforce it. But personally, I feel like I have small kids, and I feel like I'm able to maintain the social distancing much better when we're there than when we are around our neighborhood. Particular, we live in a condo complex, and so we don't have a private yard where I can keep them away from everybody. If I take them out and they run around, where I'm constantly nervous that somebody's going to come around the corner, somebody's going to come up to them, they're going to go up to somebody else, and there are definitely, it feels like every time we go out, as careful as I am, there are instances where somebody walks by too close. Whereas when we've been up there, there are such large meadows and everything that I can really keep an eye on things and actually keep the distance that we need. So to me, that feels much safer than the other options around here.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sonia, for your feedback. So when I go there, it's almost always empty. But has someone gone there recently? What's your guys' experience been? Has it been really crowded lately with the shutdown?
I've been there twice. I went on Thursday, and then we were also there briefly on the Sunday before. So the Sunday, it was sort of just about when it was going to rain. So it ended up, we weren't there for very long, but there were not many people there then. And then even on Thursday, which was when it had already been announced that it was going to be closed. So I thought, oh, maybe it'll be packed, and it was fine. We weren't anywhere close to anybody, and we walked around. We stayed kind of near the lake most of the time, and then at one point we went for a walk, and so we saw a number of people, but everybody was being really careful. I mean, I saw people having conversations, and they were standing 12 feet apart and things like that. So I felt like it was good.
Mm. Has that been everyone else's experience, or has someone been there and it's been totally packed?
I go there usually very early in the morning, and I get to the park at maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock, and then I hike and run for about an hour and a half. And I have seen at most 5 or 6 cars at the trailhead by the picnic area, and then Wild Horse Gate. And then maybe 2 or 3 cars at the main entrance. And then I literally don't see people. I go and do my hike, and I do not meet people, except for when I'm doing my stretches back at the car for 5-10 minutes, maybe somebody will pass by. Yeah, so to me, this feels as a major disruption for no clear reason. really.
Okay.
That's how I perceive.
Yeah,
I
that's my,
haven't been at the park on a weekend, and I don't know if you know about this, but on Nextdoor, this topic just exploded. Absolutely, I've never seen anything like the reaction, and maybe I should. I mean, I think you're on the same Nextdoor thread that I am, and maybe you've seen some of this.
yeah. In fact,
And-
I think we posted this office hours on there, if I'm not mistaken. But
Oh, you did. You posted. I didn't see it come across any of the threads that
really?
there are
Okay.
2 threads now going. And there have been a few people who said, "Oh my God, I was at Foothills Park and it was totally packed." So I guess it happened maybe once. I've only gone the weekdays. I don't go on the weekends. And there were actually people there. Usually when I would go on the weekdays, there would be nobody. I mean, there would be like 1 other car or 2 other cars in the parking lot. And there were actually people there, but it wasn't even close to crowded.
Yeah. So that's kind of like my experience when I've been there. Now, did everyone see the message from staff on this topic? It was a fairly long message about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So what points in there in particular do you guys disagree with? I can show my screen if you guys want to see it, but I think most of you guys have seen it already.
I can say one right off.
Okay, please.
The fact that staff is at risk and they're going to have to be coming in close contact with people. I thought that was pretty absurd. I mean, you can get your point across from 6 feet without any problem.
Okay. I would tend to agree with you on that. But that did seem a little bit of a stretch. So, yeah.
And I forget if that was the document that talked about concern about people from other areas coming here because their parks have been closed. And I could see that potentially being an issue in some of the other spaces, but not Foothills Park, obviously, as long as it's being monitored. Although it does seem like maybe, I mean, if there's the funding for it, that it might make sense to have the park staffed by rangers throughout the week, given that constraint. I mean, with San Mateo's parks being closed, and you could see a lot of people trying to come into Foothills Park who wouldn't normally do that.
So,
And we are trying to limit the number of people.
so was there anything else besides those comments that you guys saw, or not comments, but in the statements you guys disagreed with or thought was off?
I'm trying to remember what else is there. Were you able to post that next to it? Otherwise,
I could show my screen and show it to you guys if need be.
sure.
You guys want me to do that?
So just as a note, though, whenever I go there, there's nobody at the gate. So as far as my use case of the park, it's not being monitored in any way, whether it's only used by Palo Alto residents or not. And I don't have any issue with that because there's just 2 people. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah, I also rarely see people at the gate on Foothill. Once in blue moon I do, but rarely.
It used to
On
be
weekends,
when
I
they
do.
when they first opened the park, it was that gate was staffed always. Anytime you went there, that gate was the kiosk was staffed.
I see.
And that I think I don't know when that disappeared, probably in the 80s.
I
You know,
see.
sometimes they are there on a nice day, on a Saturday, on Sunday, when they know people will be gathering to picnic in the valley. You start seeing rangers at the gate. But they come pretty late in the day, usually maybe 10, 11 a.m.
So I'll
Not
just show my screen. This is the document or the message that went out. I don't know if you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, I got it.
So is there any other? I'm trying to see if I can make it a little bit bigger for you guys.
So I think a very good reference point is the directions posted at the Santa Clara County parks that address this, that say what the parks now should be used for and not be used for. And maybe we just need to kind of advertise that and make people even sign online some usage agreement that picnicking is not allowed and not to be used for social, what it can be used for and how to use it, right? Because most of the concern is that with few people not using it the way that are consistent with guidelines, current guidelines. So,
Okay, I think that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think there's policies out there that people are able to do that, allow the use without endangering people's health, right? Which is, I think, what the point is. Okay.
I can see the legitimate point that the weather has been cooler and that it probably will get more crowded as it gets nicer. And so that's why I would sort of agree with some kind of limitations, and would actually probably personally prefer to have some limitations on the number of people who can come at any given time.
So I was thinking of a possible model where there's a calendar for the park. And if you want to visit the park, you go and essentially book your time slot. And that way there's some hint or some way of enforcing, saying you can only be there for these 2 hours because there are 10 other people that have already signed up, or whatever the limit is. And then you print a confirmation of that. And there's a sense of a contract between you being there and the resource that they're using. And I don't think this would need to be policed by anybody. I think people will use it responsibly. That's my guess. I mean, a park ranger could occasionally visit and see, okay, do these guys have their permits displayed and so on. But it wouldn't have to be enforced, on a per item basis. And that way, this is a model that can be used even for normal times when the park does get overcrowded. Let's say it's some long weekend and everybody goes there to picnic and there are simply too many people in cars.
Okay.
So this is a useful thing to have, in my opinion. I really think that just this binary switch on off is just simply not a good tool for this.
So I have another thought. One of the problems I have with this letter is it's not balanced. I mean, she's not weighted against the positives in terms of being outdoors. I mean, it's a fairly well-known fact that they finally shut down the Spanish flu by moving all the patients outside. Like one of the best things you can do. And so that's not, there's, she's got all these negatives listed, but where's the balance? I don't see that. And the other issue I have is talking about how in staffing on a level of major events would be contrary to county of health order. That just seems like bureaucratic double talk. It's like they, you can just make it really clear to the county. It's like, no, we're not violating anything. We just need more staffing to enforce.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that additional staffing could just be limited hours during the afternoon. I mean, it sounds like if you want to go and run in the morning, there aren't going to be large groups of people picnicking there. There just aren't that many people. So if it comes to a need to have an additional ranger there, it probably certainly not before noon and maybe later than that. So it wouldn't have to be a huge investment.
yeah, I agree.
That's been the status quo. I don't think rangers were at the gate, except for very specific times.
Well, I think like the Stanford dish has 3 people constantly staffing 3 gates. And we need basically 3 people, maybe at most, few hours a day at 3 parks, if we want to implement access control. And it should not be that hard to do. It doesn't even have to be rangers. It could be like temporary employees checking the IDs through closed windows or looking at license plates. Another point is that the closure is not equitable. Like senior citizens and sick people that cannot hike or bike to the parks. I can personally. I only bike and hike to these parks, nearby parks. But these people are completely blocked now, and it just feels unfair. And also the people that need more the outdoor space are those that don't have backyards, like live in condos and this makes it even more unfair, right? Like people with little kids that live in condos should have access to the parks. Senior citizens should have access to the parks. They can't bike there. So it just doesn't feel fair.
And I feel like we're running out of safe places for kids to go and run around and be far enough away from other people, particularly in the situation you're talking about where people don't have a private yard. Or, I mean, I know a lot of people who have yards that aren't necessarily landscaped to allow for kids to run around either. And I don't want to end up in a situation where we're in more crowded city parks, or we're, you know, right around areas where there are a lot of other people and it's not nearly as fun or as safe as it would be to be in a really large area like Foothills Park.
Yeah.
I have another thought, Greg, about the whole social distancing. It took a while for people to catch on. You're asking people to change a very deeply seated behavior. You're asking them to be deliberately antisocial, and it takes a while to get this through to people. And that is, you know, if there's a ranger at the gate and they hand a flyer to somebody, or they say to every single person coming in the gate, you must maintain social distancing, this is important, and why. I mean, there are things that I personally feel the larger authorities need to be more proactive with in just educating. You don't want to go yell at people and lay down the law. I mean, that's just obnoxious. You got to understand what you're doing. It's a process for people. They have to hear it, I don't know, 3 or 5 or 7 times before it sinks in, and they can adjust their behavior. But that's something that what she's talking about. Yeah, I mean, that's another part of the reaction that I feel was very unrealistic. The other thing she talks about, rangers and police being called to enforce behavior. That would be, I'd like to know what was actually happening. One, it's my understanding that crime has plummeted in Santa Clara County, absolutely taken a nosedive, because the criminals aren't going outside either, which is extraordinary. So I kind of wonder if they actually maybe have more time to deal with this. And I suspect that this will be less of a problem. I think it's not going to continue to be a problem. But I'd like to know okay, let's see the data on their end, and she's not giving it to us.
Okay. Deanna, can you check for the next item to make sure that if we could be a little bit late on that one? Because I think this topic is actually a very good discussion. Just out of cross, what is, based on what you know and people you know, and maybe stuff you saw next door, what is your feeling in terms of, do you think the city can safely open up the parking lots? Or do you think that there's no way to do it without a lot of risk? What's people's kind of feel right now on this, given what you guys have seen and heard?
With Foothills Park, it's a no-brainer. It should not be hard at all. Arrastradero, that's a different cup of, that's a different ball of wax or whatever. So they're completely different. They closed Arrastradero, and then all of our Arrastradero was parked up with cars. So the street, it was actually quite dangerous.
Mm.
I wouldn't be going to the Foothills Park if I didn't think I was safe there.
Absolutely. And to Deborah's point about balancing, I think that I feel far less safe at a grocery store than I do at Foothills Park. It's not even close. And we're balancing where, yes, it's an issue that people are at grocery stores, but we're balancing the fact that people need to get food and eat. But we're not really giving fair weight to the fact that people need to get outside and exercise, and kids need to run around and blow off steam.
Exercise is also really important too. It's also one of the essential services as well. So, okay. There's no council meeting tomorrow, but there's one next Monday. And I've gotten a lot of community feedback, and of course feedback from you guys as well. So I will bring this up as an issue with the city manager, not tomorrow, but next council meeting, and see if we can get something changed. Because I do, it does strike me that it is a bit extreme.
Yes.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. And we can follow the county rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, guys, we're a little bit over time, so sorry about that, but thank you so much for calling in. Stay safe. If you guys have other suggestions, just let me know. I'm hoping I have enough support on council to change this, but we'll see. But for me, it seems like there are ways to make this more accessible than what we do right now. So.
Great.
Hi, thank you so much, Craig.
Okay, thank you guys. Okay,
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.